Today's guest is not emerging, not up next, and absolutely not waiting to be validated. She is already shaping the conversation. I'm joined by Marième Mboup, a Senegalese stylist and textile exploration artist whose work has been recognized by major global fashion platforms including Vogue Singapore, Elle Cote d'Ivoire, Elle India, Marmalade Collective, and Guzangs. She's been named among African creators to watch and profiled for redefining modest fashion through intention, structure, and cultural depth. Her creative identity reflects a practice rooted in heritage storytelling and architectural draping rather than algorithm driven aesthetics. Raised in Dakar, Mariam grew up in a world where modest dressing was not a category, not a marketing strategy, and most definitely not a political headline. It was simply part of daily life, embodied elegance and dignity. As modest fashion has become globalized, labeled, and commercialized, she has chosen a different path. Her work resists speed and spectacle. It leans into slowness, layering, and intention. Instead of chasing trends, she builds from lived experience, from faith, and from the memory of the women who shaped her understanding of beauty long before fashion editors were paying attention. This conversation moves beyond clothing. We explore what happens when identity becomes trend content, who benefits when modesty becomes profitable, and how African Muslim women reclaim authorship in an industry that has long borrowed from them without credit. If you clicked expecting a fashion interview, stay. This is a conversation about power, narrative control, and redefining what innovation really looks like. All right, so the first question I have for you,
Mhm,
first, I want to say I'm gonna give some context, but for those
mhm,
who do not know who Mariam is, you grew up in Senegal, and this is a place where dressing modestly wasn't, I want to say, political to an extent or countercultural. It was normal and integrated into everyday life and part of the rhythm of how women move through the world.
mhm.
But before modest fashion became a runway theme or a global conversation, it was simply just like a lived reality. So I guess my question to you is like, when you think back to growing up in Senegal, what did modesty actually mean to you before the fashion industry and the global media ever framed it as something else?
Mhm. Honestly, when I was younger, I really linked modesty to faith, to Islam, because most of the women that would see dress modesty were not necessarily dressing because of religion, but since
Right.
I was really like to me, modesty meant Islam. But because I was not
Mm,
educated enough about it, and because I was very young, uh, to me would just be a way of dressing that you choose based on your faith, because I had a lot of aunts, a lot of people in Senegal also would wear the hijab, wear abayas, again, like we were saying earlier, like very related to the Arab fashion. But I think when I
mm,
think back now, the way I would see my mother, my aunts, etc., wear boo-boos and like the musor, the head wrap, to me, it is also a way of dressing modestly, but more cultural rather than um how do you say it? Religious. And
mm,
I think when I was young, to me, those type of dresses would just be elegant and majestic to me because of the way they flow, the way they shape the woman, the way they um the essence that you would have when you would wear them. So to me, when I was young, I would say
right.
that part of modesty was fashionable. It was pretty. It was elegant. It was cultural. But I would really, really most times relate modesty to religion when I was young. Now that I'm older and that I know
Mm,
better and that I know I'm more educated on the subject, I know that it's not necessarily related to Islam in some ways, but, I
right.
would say that's how I received it when I was young, when I was back home in
Yeah.
Dakar. Mm.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. And for those, me and Madame just had like a really interesting conversation before jumping onto this. But something that I had mentioned to her was that,
Yes.
there was this big like Arabization of the religion, especially if you are someone who's trying to look for, to dress modestly and things like that. It happens everywhere, all around the world, right? We see it in our own communities as well. There's this need to like have to dress like a certain culture that comes from the Middle East in order to be religious, right?
Mm,
But if you guys are interested, I have an episode called out called "How Islam Came into Africa," and you really learn about how Islam really came into countries that already were practicing the religion in a way where it's like when it came, there wasn't that many adjustments that were needed. If anything, it enhanced the culture a lot, and and you are so right, girl. The dresses that our aunts be wearing, our parents be wearing, they're so elegant in a way that it's like it's so hard to describe, but
Mhm.
it's really interesting too because you think about in the West how I want to say beauty or elegance in a way can be defined in a different way as well. But it just
Abs-
shows you how multidimensional it is, right? Sometimes we're being told that like to be beautiful or to be elegant, you have to like show every part of your skin, which is fine for the girlies who think that if that works for you, that works for you. But
abs-
it shouldn't be limited to that strictly,
yeah,
you know? Yeah.
I think it's very interesting how it differs, like the principle of elegance and beauty,
Hmm.
depending on the cultures. Because, as you said, in some countries, you can just be like showing parts of your body. In others, it can be modesty, but more minimalist. But where we come from, it's like it can be minimalist, but most times it is beautiful to wear something that is big and colorful and accessories and something that's not necessarily simple and that makes you stand out, you know?
Hmm.
So yeah, it's very, very interesting to be like observing the different
Hmm.
definitions and the different beauty standards, especially when it comes to fashion and modest fashion. So yeah.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Um, no, I guess I want to move on to another part. It's that, which is at some point in time, modest fashion has shifted from becoming like a lived identity to a labeled aesthetic, kind of like what we just slowly, like little, like subtly talked about.
Mhm.
But it became like a market segment, whether that was like a hashtag or some sort of edit people made during Ramadan, and shifting from something that's organic to automatically being categorized. How did that transition feel to you personally and creatively?
Um, I would say for me, it all started before I started wearing the hijab, all that
Yeah.
transition, because I started wearing it in 2023, so almost 3 years ago. And I think that shift and the way modest fashion came into the fashion industry and became a trend in a sense, uh, I think started seeing it happening around 2021, 2022. So right
Mm-hmm.
during after COVID. It probably started earlier than that, but that's when I really saw that shift and seeing how people would be like dressing modestly more frequently, or seeing hijabi women and Muslim women being monetized more and like being shown more on fashion weeks or with certain
Yeah.
brands or couture houses. So I think seeing that shift for me, it had a good side and a bad side in a sense. To me, I really felt it. The way I felt it was kind of the way dark skinned women also started being a trend within the fashion industry and the modeling industry. That's a bit how I received it in a sense,
Yeah.
because Muslim women are women that have been shamed and discriminalized because of their choices and the hijab that they're wearing and the choices that they make
Right.
their wardrobe
Most
based on their
definitely.
faith. Um, but suddenly the fashion industry really started putting them forward and like showing them more and using more headscarves within their looks. And the controversial side here for me is the way sometimes they would portray Muslim women and like represent them more within their fashion shows, within their campaigns, etc. But they wouldn't actually cast actual Muslim women. They would just cast
Mm,
women and then dress them as Muslim women. So I guess it's good for
yeah.
representation, but what is the intention behind it? Is it just for profit? Is it just because it's a trend? So that's why for me it's really a 50-50 situation. Like I'm not fully
Yeah.
feeling comfortable with the way it has blown up into the industry in the past years. Um, for me specifically, when I started wearing the hijab, I was not I was still discovering myself, I'd say, with like I was still discovering my personal style while wearing the hijab. So I think for me, I really found it at the end of 2023. And I think when it struck me the most, like how Muslim women were appreciated within the fashion industry, and like how it became a trend and how modest fashion started being more like midgetized,
Mhm.
was by one day I was somewhere, I think I was at a show or at an event, something like that, and someone came to me and we were talking and like we're exchanging just all about personal style, etc. And the person stopped at some point and they were like, "You make the hijab look so cool."
Hmm.
And that comment really struck me in a sense because it was the first time that I received a comment based on the fact that I was openly Muslim.
Right.
And to me, the way it impacted me, like mentally and emotionally, was really like when people would say sometimes, "Oh my God, you're so pretty for a black girl." That's really how I took it.
Hmm.
Because I'm like, it's not meant to be cool. Yes, it can be. It can look cool. It can look beautiful, like any other thing, any other way of dressing.
Yeah.
But
It's a
the fact that
backhanded compliment.
yeah. And I was very shocked. I was like, I don't know if I should say thank you or not because I've never gotten that type of comment before.
Yeah.
But I think that's really when it struck me that wow, like this is how people see it. And this is how people
Mhm.
me as well as a Muslim woman, because at some point people started asking me, oh, like, do you dress like this because of the hijab, or did you start wearing the hijab because you could dress like this?
Oh.
Like, oh,
Hmm.
that's
Interesting.
but yeah, for me personally, I think it really impacted me. It didn't impact me creatively speaking, I would say. I would say
Mhm.
creatively speaking, it was really personal to me, the way my creativity flows and like merges in a sense with my culture and my faith.
Mhm.
Um, but I did see the impact on social media, for example, that like
Mhm.
people more into modest fashion and African fashion, like all the maximalist, um,
Yes.
like trends, etc. So I think
Mhm.
social media wise, it did have an impact. I think people would be following my content more because I am a hijabi woman that dresses pretty like in a pretty maximalist way. But
Mhm.
personally, when it comes to my creative flow and like discovery within my personal style, I wouldn't say it had that much of an impact because I based myself on things that I already knew, which were
Mhm.
culture and my faith. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I'm pretty sure that comment that person made is a direct impact, or I want to say repercussion, of basically what the media and the modeling industry has
Mhm.
been doing, right? Because not only are they casting people who do not embody the full characteristics of the hijab to wear something as religious and spiritual as the hijab, but a lot of the
Mhm.
times too, you don't see women who look like us with our complexion who are those
Yeah.
models as well. So once again, it kind of Eurocentrizes and Arabizes the
Mhm.
religion, because there's this big idea too as a black Muslim that you
Mhm.
have either reverted to the religion or it's something you found later in your life and you weren't simply born into it, which is completely false, because
Yes.
Islam came into Africa before it even got to Medina, you know? And I think people tend to forget that.
Mhm.
But I just find it so interesting sometimes how, yeah, like the fashion industry will literally do that and then it feels performative. You're like, is this, like you said, genuine? Do they really have like the good intention, or are they simply just doing it, to actually represent us? But then if it's only represented in those spaces by a specific group of people who look a certain way, it
Yeah.
creates a distorted reality. Hence why people will say those, make those comments. But even
Yes.
I have a, not a hot take, but like a question I guess I want to ask you, because you mentioned that you would dress, what many would say, let's say many would say,
Mhm.
uh, like in a way that's considered maximalist. There's always this conversation, I feel like, in the past couple of years between minimalism and maximalism. I'm not
Mhm.
gonna lie. I feel like minimalism within the past couple of years just means everything white and beige and structured in like a weird way, which
Yeah.
I hate. I really hate. Like I want to walk into someone's house and be like, I know this kind of person lives here, or like
Mhm.
I want a house to feel like a home. I want you to look like you did not just come out of a hospital, you know?
Mhm.
But I do feel like, would you say that you consider yourself to dress as like in a maximalist way, or what standard do you measure that by? Like if I think about like maximalism, I'm measuring it against the current stat like way minimalism is portrayed. But I feel
Yes.
like sometimes when it comes to African fashion, right, there's this label of it being maximalist. But that is, I think, when you're comparing it to the West. But I don't know, for yourself, would you consider it maximalist, or do you think, through the eyes of like society, that they see it as a maximalist thing?
Uh, I think to the eyes of society, they see it as a nationalist thing. But
Yeah.
there are some things that sometimes I would wear that even back home in Dakar would be considered
Mm-hmm.
as maximalist. So I would say it's a case by case situation depending on what I'm wearing. But
Mm-hmm.
I would say like the first like I had never known the term maximalist until someone taught it to me when I came here and they were like, "Oh my God, you dress
Yeah.
very maximalist." And I was like, "What does that mean?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do agree with you. It really is measured compared to the Western standards of
Mm-hmm.
what something normal or minimalist or maximalist should be. Because when it comes to African culture, even just our textiles and even just the patterns that are going to be used are going to be considered maximalist. When for us, it's the most normal thing that you could be wearing back home. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say for me personally, it's a case by case situation because sometimes I would go back home and I would wear certain things and my mom would be looking at me sideways. And then I understand that it might be too much, but most
Right.
things where I do not necessarily consider maximalist.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it for
Yeah.
me.
Because sometimes when I hear someone talk about African fashion and they use the word maximalist, maybe more specifically when it's coming from someone who's in the West, I feel like it has such a negative like connotation to it. It's making it seem like, oh, African fashion is too much, it's too loud.
Yes.
Like, you should keep it hidden. Like you should just wear plain clothes, like jeans and a white t-shirt or whatever trend is going on, like barrel jeans or something. Like I don't
Mhm.
know, like they just box it, they categorize it into this thing that is so bizarre. Hence why like I had created something like my podcast, because to be African doesn't mean you're primitive and like all of these things. Like there's so much work happening in the media to destroy the continent and make it seem like it's a place that is not even not developing, but isn't a place worth developing because they need to be civilized. Like, so the idea sometimes when I hear like maximalist, like African fashion, I'm like African fashion is minimalist if you think about it. Like in that context, right? Like you said, it depends on where you are, but if you're back home, like a lot of like the texture, the textiles and the fabrics and even the silhouettes, that is very minimalist, like in my
Yes.
eyes. Maximalist, even I don't even know if they have a maximalism. Like there's just like it's just so broad, and that's so beautiful because we have so many ethnic groups too, different types of people, and they all dress a different way. And I feel
Mhm.
like that's how sometimes I wish it would feel like in the US, so that when you do wear pieces of clothing like that in public, you don't feel like you're sticking out like a sore thumb. Like, or others
Mhm.
gonna see you that way as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just found that interesting because I was thinking about it. I'm like, when I hear maximalist and African fashion, sometimes I'm
Mhm.
like, I feel like it's always associated with something negative. I don't know.
I feel you. I feel you on that. It
Yeah.
really is that too much side of fashion that people are not necessarily used to. Like they would see it on runways and be like, "Oh, it's maximalist. It's nice," but it's not necessarily things that they would be wearing like casually. When, contrarily to us, we would because it's part of our
Hmm.
culture. It's our textures. It's our textiles. It's our patterns. It's our colors. It's the accessories. So for us, it's completely normal. And really, as you said, you can find different types of minimalism or maximalism everywhere within the African continent. In some
Yeah.
regions, it would be more simple, like more like cuts, um, structures, not much
Hmm.
texture, a lot of color. If you go to Congo, you would find something more like colorful and like a lot of color matching, etc. If you go to Senegal, it's more about layers, it's more about volume. So it really does depend on where exactly you go. So it's a very subjective term, I find.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, back to kind of like the media and I guess like runways and how modest fashion is being portrayed. I would say that we're now in a moment where like brands that once excluded like Muslim women, like you talked about before, they're all of a sudden like launching modest collections and marketing campaigns and things of that sort. And yes, we see like the visibility and representation and celebration, but
Mhm.
there's also like profit and commercial strategy. So kind of like back to what you were saying about how some of the models don't really look like us, or maybe they're not actually, Muslim, for instance. But I would ask, like, in your view, who benefits when modesty becomes an aesthetic rather than a lived identity? And do you feel that something meaningful usually gets lost in that process?
I would say it's definitely the industry that benefits more from it
Mm-hmm.
because it really leaves aside all the struggle that also comes with modesty within the Western world, more specifically. When it comes to discrimination, when it comes to the questions, the huge rise of Islamophobia everywhere in the world, like it really
Mm-hmm.
puts that aside and really paints modest fashion as an aesthetic when it's not an aesthetic, it's a lived value and it's something that we represent ourselves with. It's our identity and it's we relate to it, we live by it, we respect it. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's how do you say it? It's shaped differently. It changes. So I would say the way it's portrayed it really benefits more the industry because they only portray one type of one style when it comes to modesty. They don't represent everything. It's mostly either like Arab fashion or a westernized way of dressing modestly. So, for example, people that would wear more like cuts that are very like sharp and like very
Mm-hmm.
tight, scarves, for example, which is good, which is something
Right.
that some women wear as well. But it's only one type of representation when it comes to modest fashion. It's
Exactly.
not all of it. They don't represent African modesty. They don't represent modesty in other countries or
Mm-hmm.
continents. I would say it really benefits more the industry because it has become an aesthetic and a trend. So it brings them more money. People want to see it more. People want to
Mm-hmm.
interact with it more, but people don't want to understand it more. So
Yeah.
for us, I guess as Muslim women, if we were to say that it benefits us, I guess it would just be the fact that it's more present on social media platforms and like more
Yeah.
represented. So I guess
Mm-hmm.
it's less shocking on a day-to-day basis because people are more used to seeing it online now compared to
Right.
before. But the way it's represented and the way people interact with us stay the same. So
Yeah.
I would say it really benefits more the industry. And something meaningful is definitely lost in in the process, I would say, because as I said earlier, people do not understand what it is
Mm-hmm.
to adopt like the principles of modesty, whether it is within religion or not. Um, I think people lack education when it comes to what it is, why people dress a certain way, why people choose certain things, what it represents for them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think for us sometimes it can be, for me personally, it can be triggering when I'm speaking to people and I realize that they really do see it more as an aesthetic. And sometimes they wouldn't even associate me with a Muslim woman because they would be like, everybody dresses so modestly now. So it's not necessarily about that, and which is true. But being someone that is openly Muslim and that has chosen that because of my faith, it would be good to like be recognized for it and not because it's an aesthetic and because it's pretty and because it's more on social media.
Right.
So,
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I would say like a lot of the repercussions too kind of leak into our own communities and our own people. Like I said myself, when I first started dressing like modestly, I was only shown like one image or one version of it to the point I became very ignorant to it myself. I'm like, I'm gonna go wear a jilbab every day.
mhm,
You know, and it's like jilbabs are nice, but it's not like my fashion, or it doesn't come from where I come from, or it's just I'm just restricting myself to one type of fashion, and I'm
mhm.
thinking that's the only right way. And I feel like in a way that's what creates sometimes those people in comments. I don't know if you get them ever, like people be like, "Oh sister, that's haram," like you shouldn't be wearing that,
Oh,
you know, or
haram
"Oh
police.
tabarruj." But
Um,
yeah,
yeah, I really don't pay attention to those comments because,
good. It's nonsense.
yeah, because it's like sometimes they'd be like, because I don't always hide my neck, right? So a lot of people sometimes they would call that out on social media, but I'm like, hijab at the end of the day is a journey. Sometimes I like to cover it, sometimes I don't, and I know what the principles of it are. And
Mm-hmm.
like most times when they do comments, they like to use that I don't remember what the phrasing is in English, but in French it's le rappel profite aux croyants. So like the remind excuse me, the reminders only profit the true believers. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
if it doesn't profit you, or if you don't take it well, it means you're not a true believer. And
What in the world?
I don't stand by this phrase at all in certain cases, because that phrase is true, but it really depends on how you formulate things, how you do it, how you
Yeah.
call out the person that's in front of you. Because yes, as Muslim people, we should be calling out certain things, like if it's people we know, or like if it's people that we feel like would profit them in a certain way. But being on social media and being on people's comment like, you shouldn't be doing this, it's haram, you're gonna go to hell. It's a bit intense.
Yeah.
It's a bit
I know.
intense.
And even right now, I don't know if you've been seeing, there's like a whole debate, and I try to escape it, but it just shows up on all my social media platforms. But about, this one individual who said that, like, oh, hijab is not a journey or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And it's those kinds of comments that I think are really dangerous, especially because, like, I don't know, because even when you look at like the concept of hijab itself, like we have so many schools of thought, and every single school of thought has different rulings about certain things when it comes to hijab. So
Mhm.
for an individual who maybe might not even share the same school of thought of you as you, to like comment under your post and be like, "Hey, what you're wearing, too much color. Hijab shouldn't be like that." That's one school of thought. Or they might be like, "Oh, it's you're showing your neck." That's another school of thought. Oh, you're showing
Right.
your face. That's another school of thought. So
Well,
it's just like it goes to show, kind of like you said, when it comes to modesty, people don't really do that much like research, or like they don't educate themselves well enough, and it makes them ignorant because they think that their way is the highway. So then when
mhm.
they comment things like that, or like people like me, when I was like looking at fashion and thinking one way was the only way, it's really destructive, because that's not what our religion is about. Our religion is very, very flexible, very open, if you really think about it. And I feel like they say, what if, like, I do not met you, you not met you. Like, it's life is not that hard. It's us that make it more difficult for ourselves. And if we really take the time to really
Mhm.
learn about these practices, where they come from and who believes in what, and seeing what works for you, like, I think all would be well. But unfortunately, not everyone does think like that, which is why I love that you are even putting yourself out there and
Mhm.
showing, how modesty can look different, right? It's destroying those boundaries that these people have put in place that were never meant to be there to begin with. And I really hope with time, people that will allow people to really open their eyes and realize, oh, see, you don't have to wear the hijab like that, or hijab can be like a big headscarf, or you can wear something that is very like versatile, and like whatever the case may be. Or maybe people who come from this region dress this way, or this is how they've always dressed, and this is what modesty means to them, right? um
Yes.
but
And
yeah.
that's really big. I'd say like that thought was very like it shifted how I see hijab a whole different way. Because when it really struck me is when I first went to Medina,
Mm,
at my sister, and you see like there's like hundred thousands of people that you see like going to the mosque at the same time.
yes.
And I was like, sometimes I would get dressed, and most of my clothes are pretty colorful. Like most of my hijabs were colorful. I have like very like they stand out. Like the khimar that I
Yeah.
usually like is bright colors. And
Mm-hmm.
I would be like, I don't know if I can wear this. Like it's too bright. Like I feel like I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna stand out too much. Like I shouldn't be standing out that much. Like it's genre in a crowd, you see my head. I don't know if I should be wearing this. Almost like, but you do know that like all of these hundred thousands of people come from like different continents and different countries and different cultures. So you will see people dressing the same way that they dress
Mm-hmm.
back home, because that's what they know. So it's not about the colors that you wear. It's not about like if you stand out or not. It's about you covering yourself. And I was like, you know
Yeah.
what? All right. And I think
Mm-hmm.
like at that point it really shifted the way I see it. And yeah, 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 it was a very interesting thing to experiment, I would say.
Yeah. And speaking of Medina, or going for Umrah or Hajj or whatever it is, something that I just thought about that I feel like has so much wisdom, and like, so I don't know what the intention was behind. I mean, I do, but like I feel like in the context of African fashion, I find it really interesting where, when you're performing the tawaf and you're going around the Kaaba multiple times, as a
Mhm.
man, you have to dress in like your ihram garments, and all men have to look the same, the exact
Yes.
same.
Mhm.
But as women, the only, like, I would say, requirement for us is
Mhm.
just to dress modestly. And then
Yeah.
for everyone, like, don't wear anything that's like perfume based, like,
Mhm.
there's all these little things. But in terms of how you dress, I want to say, just
Mhm.
look modest, be head to toe modest, right?
Mhm.
And in a way that Muslim women are already like representations of their religion because of how they dress. I would say more in the West, most like definitely because not everyone dresses like that.
Mhm.
Um, when you're in Mecca, it's like not only are you a representation of the religion, but like where you come from. And as women, I feel like that's so powerful. Like,
Mhm.
imagine like all these men doing tawaf and they all look the same. But the women, not only are you wearing hijab, but I can tell you're from Indonesia. I can
Mhm.
tell you're from Ethiopia. I can
Mhm.
tell that you're from, because like that's just the beauty of it.
Yes.
It just shows you that like Islam has spread to vast lands and
Mhm.
has expanded in such beautiful ways because it was never meant to stay in one place ever, ever,
Absolutely.
you
Mhm.
know? And I find it so beautiful on top of already representing the religion through what you're wearing on your head and how the
Mhm.
men all have to straight like dress the same, that you're
Mhm.
able to be creative with what you wear to the extent where it doesn't have to look like one way. There's this
Yes.
idea that like you just have to wear a black abaya like all the time and you
Yeah.
you don't, you know? You know how beautiful that is to see someone who's a woman and like is dressed so modestly, but
Mhm.
like they look a little different than you. I
Mhm.
think that's beautiful. I don't. I
Yes.
personally, I was just thinking about that, like the toe off, and like I could just imagine seeing you like walking around, and I'd be like, oh, I know her. Yep, she's from.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. It is very beautiful to see. And mind you, I didn't even know that was possible until I got there. Cause like
Mhm.
all I was seeing was people dressing in black and white, black and white, black and white. I was like, okay, I have to dress either in black or in white. I even like my mom even made me something to wear for the tawaf specifically. And I
Yeah.
arrived there
Yeah.
people and I was like, but I can wear whatever I want. And
Yeah.
it felt very like I was very relieved and it felt very like comfortable, I would say,
Mhm.
not necessarily have to blend in to be able to do the tawaf, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm glad you felt that way, but I was guilty of it too. I wore a black and white jilbab every time I went. So, but I
I get
didn't realize till after. I was like, yeah, I ain't gotta do all that. It's okay. um, I guess I want to say one of the things that like stands out to me about your work is how intentional it feels. Like it doesn't feel reactive to like for instance what you see on the algorithms, like the algorithm cycles, or trend forecasts. It just feels very architectural, I would say. That's like the best word to describe it as, or deliberate. Could you walk me through your creative process? So like where does a piece begin for you, and then how do faith, structure or intention shape the way you design and drape? There's this one dress I think I saw you wear, in particular. It was a boo boo, right?
it.
And it was a blue one. I've seen it all over Pinterest, girl. Like they
Okay.
putting you everywhere. It was a bright blue, royal blue boo boo. I'm like, how does how does your brain even know to like layer it in that way or to drape it in that way? Like just walk me through your process when it comes to like seeing a piece or even finding a piece. Like where do you find your pieces, or like where do you start? What's your baseline, and then how do you work from there to put it together into something, that you see yourself, wearing?
Honestly, it's all very spontaneous. It's the best way I can describe it. It's extremely spontaneous,
Yeah.
and I think that's what makes it intentional as well, because I don't really plan it. It's really either I find something and it's nice and I'm like, "Oh, we could work something with that," or like that dress specifically was a gift from a like oh my god, what's the word? I forgot the word, but it's two black women that own it in London. It's called
Okay.
Grassfields, and
Yeah.
they basically make dresses and like clothes based on their vision of African culture, like what they know of it. So it's like boo-boos with like specific textiles and fabrics, why the
Mm-hmm.
royal blue and like how shiny it was. And I got it, and the process of that one was really, it was my friend's birthday, and her theme for her birthday was like African. Dress as you are, dress like as your
Mm-hmm.
culture, wear boo-boos, wear anything you want. So I was like,
I
okay,
love
I'm gonna
that.
wear that one. And I just started putting on a few things. I was like, oh, I want a skirt. So I wore a skirt. And then I wore the boo on top. And I was like, oh, but when I wear the boo, we don't see the skirt. So I started draping the boo so that we could see the skirt better. And then I was like, oh my God, but I also got a white female that I could use. So it's like, it's very, very spontaneous. And I think that's what drives me the most too when I dress. It's the fact that I never know what I'm going to end up with. I always try things.
I love that.
Sometimes it's pretty, sometimes it's
Hmm.
not that pretty, sometimes it's shaped well, sometimes I don't like the shape. So I think that spontaneous side of it is really what I like the most. And for me, my process is really mostly based on the shapes that I want to recreate
Hmm.
first. So everything that comes to color is really second, I would say, but somehow I always
Interesting.
end up with bright colors. Um,
Hmm.
Sometimes if I want something that's more silhouette, I'm gonna choose something that can be tightened more, that can be pinned more easily. Sometimes if I want something that's like moves more, that's more flowy, I'm gonna go with something
Hmm.
that I don't necessarily have to tighten around the waist or around the neck. Sometimes
Hmm.
that really flows easily and that's more comfortable. So it really like every time I get asked this question about like what's my creative process, I'm always a bit lost because it's never like step by step.
One
It's
shade.
all
Yeah.
different things that come into mind and that fuel my
Hmm.
creativity, and that's why like I end up doing such things. Um, I would say the role that I would say faith plays a role in the way I dress, but mostly because of the modest side of it rather
Hmm.
than the religious part of it. I would say
Hmm.
like it's really more the principle of modesty itself that plays a big role because of course before I dress any type of way I will dress modestly. So that
Right.
shapes everything else.
Hmm.
But I really base myself on culture. I base myself on
Hmm.
culture a lot. And
Yeah.
sometimes if I'm not wearing necessarily something that's cultural, something that's like from Senegal, I would find like you would find certain elements that would remind that. So whether it's the jewelry, whether it's the silhouettes, whether it's the like the way I wear the thing, the way I wear my headscarf. So I would say that varies a lot. And in terms of intention, I would say it plays a role mostly when I work with big pieces that I plan, like pieces that, let's say, um, transmit a message.
Hmm.
Um, when I work with pieces that would transmit a message, like more traditional ones, I will make sure that they're represented more accurately and more realistically, just to make sure
Hmm.
that people understand that it is a cultural piece. It's not just because it's pretty, it's identity, it's cultural heritage. So the intention behind is much stronger than like when I dress more casually every day. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that would explain pretty much like what goes through my head when I'm creating.
Yeah. Oh, well, I was about to take out a piece of pen and paper, be like, let me see, like, how she. But honestly, I think the spontaneous part of it,
Mhm,
like, makes sense, right? I think that's why a lot of your work gets noticed by so many individuals because if it was just something that was so structured and thought out every single time, it's going to end up looking like, if you're going to think too much about it, it's going to end up looking like every single thing that already exists. And
mhm,
I think that's like the best way to go about it. You just do what works for you. That's what clothing is. That's what colors are. Like they just speak to you, and you kind of just work with them and the textures, and ask yourself what looks good. But try to remove any sort of basis or guideline that's been like preconditioned in your mind to be like this is what something pretty is supposed to look like. This is what something um ugly is supposed to look like. This is what something that is too minimalist is supposed to look like, or too maximalist, and just literally just going with your gut. I think it's like the best way to do it, and I love that it's just a spontaneous, kind of journey. But I think that really speaks to your work. It's not something. It shouldn't be something that you could just put together like 1, 2, 3. No, it takes time, and it's a lot of intention that's rooted behind it, and kind of like you mentioned, like you think about your modesty and being covered first, and to an extent, and then the rest kind of just follows, and that that's a true
Mhm.
testament to what I see and how others I know feel it. I've
Mhm.
had so many friends send me your content and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it seems so cool." Like, and I think that it's because it's so cool, it just shows how much of a unique human being that you are.
Mhm.
There's this I feel like pattern in society nowadays along with like the minimalism to like not have a personality that is different. Like to everyone needs to talk a certain way, be a certain way, act a certain way, carry themselves a certain way. But us
Mhm.
are human beings, we're created very differently to be ourselves. And that's what
Mhm.
makes us beautiful. And I
Yes.
think if you are limiting yourself in terms of how you dress because of the
Mhm.
fact that you don't want to tap into your own energy, oh goodness, I feel like there's so much potential there, But I love that it's so spontaneous, and it just goes to show that you are someone who not only is a unique individual, but you are not hiding that. You are okay with being unique, with being different, not feeling like you have to get the new next piece of clothing that everyone else is buying, or
Mhm.
trying to plan out how something that you saw somebody's gonna wear looks good in your closet. You're just taking pieces and putting it all together. And I love to like talk to me about, for instance, marakis, right? I've seen that you wear those a lot with your clothing. And
Mhm.
growing up, I've only seen men wear that too.
Mhm.
And there tends to be like a little bit of a debate as well within the Muslim community about certain types of clothing and if they belong to men, let it stay for men and things like that. But talk to me about like how you decided to incorporate that. Was it just based off of like the shape of the shoe and like where it came from and just pairing that with like what you had on? Like I want to know where your brain went when you were like, okay, I'm gonna incorporate that in my outfit.
Honestly, it was really the shape of the shoe. It was the shape of the shoe. I really love how pointy it is. Simple it is, honestly, because it's just one color and it's like one small structure like this, and it changes a lot of things. And I think where it came from for me was my
Mm-hmm.
mother. My mother wears a lot of, not Marrakesh specifically, but a lot of shoes that resemble them. So it's kind of like a derived version of it made for women. She wears them all the time, all the
Yeah.
time, all the time. And most of her shoes are the same structure and the same form as well, the same shape. And I think seeing it on her, I was like, oh, this is pretty. I want to try it. And I tried it and I really loved it. And from that point, I started, like, I was working with an artisan back home in Senegal that I met in the market. And he made them for me, like, sur mesure, and like he custom made
Yeah.
them and he did so well, and they're so comfortable and so pretty. And I think what struck to me is really the color, the combination between the color and the shape of it. Like it's
Mm.
really,
Mm.
I love. It
That's
is true that
beautiful.
starts this for men, but I don't think it's I don't think, like, I've never seen anyone specify that it's really men's shoes. I think it
Yeah.
just, like, how do you say
It's
it?
predominantly worn by them,
Yeah,
actually.
exactly. But I think women can wear them too.
Yeah. What about like the hat that you wear sometimes? I've seen that and I found that so creative. Like, um, it's just like I don't know what it's called, but it's a small hat that you just place on like a really loose, like whether
Mhm.
that's a chiffon scarf or whatever texture that it is, or whatever clothing that you're wearing, or if it's like a malfa and you like put it right on top too.
Mhm.
Where did that idea also come from?
It's a kufi hat. It's a hat that's really worn within the Muslim communities by men.
Mm-hmm.
That specifically is
Mm-hmm.
for men,
Yeah,
usually.
yeah.
Um, I think I just saw it and I wanted to wear it. As I
Mm-hmm.
said, it's very spontaneous. I saw it, I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I tried it and I loved it. So I just kept wearing it like most times. And it's really nice. I am careful where I wear it to, though, because in some cultures it can be considered as an androgynous look rather than just
Mm-hmm.
a fashionable accessory.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's a kufi hat. It's really predominantly worn by Muslim men and Arab men. There's like different versions of it. There's also the ones that are
Mm-hmm.
like more square shapes, like the one you see back home in West
Yeah.
Africa. So yeah, that's where it came from.
Yeah. I feel like it'd be really interesting to see how you would be able to like work with those hats that also men wear that are beanies and then they have the pom-pom on top and they're like very textured. I don't know if you know the hats I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be really cool to see how you could work with that. Maybe in the winter or like when it's cold. Like I don't know. I feel like it could definitely be paired with an outfit and look very, very nice.
I
Um,
agree. It's the ones the
yeah.
movies wear back home, but it's I tried it. It doesn't look nice on me, so I wore it because
Yeah.
it's very thick and it is really nice for winter because it's very warm. It's something that you could really
Hmm.
wear in winter here. That's why I don't know how they do it back home because it is very, very warm. Like when you wear it, it's
Right. I've always thought about that. I'm like,
yeah,
I would think this hat was made like in North America or maybe Northern Europe, but in Africa.
it's super warm. Like I don't know how they do it. Really respect,
Hmm.
but it doesn't work for me
Yeah.
because like sometimes things just don't work for your head shape. So
Yeah.
yeah, it
Maybe
is.
it blocks out the sun if you think about it for climate as well. Maybe it like it prevents like the sun from if they cut their hair out, okay, cut their
Yeah,
hair off a lot.
yeah.
I don't know. I'll probably ask my father. I'll let him know. Yeah. I guess I want to also say that we kind of touched upon this in multiple retrospects, but there's a dominant idea in Western fashion that, freedom means fewer boundaries, that if you show more, it shows that you're more liberated. And we see these ideas within a lot of like feminist works as well.
Mhm.
But your work seems to suggest that structure and discipline can actually coexist and like sharpen creativity rather than like diminish it and limit it. So do you experience modesty as a constraint sometimes in your design practice or a source of creative authority? And how would you say working within structure like expanded your artistry?
I think it definitely works as a source of creativity. It inspires me a lot. I think what people would like to call limitations, so like the limitations that I have as a Muslim woman when it comes to the way I dress, fuel my creativity because
Yeah.
instead of showing less, for example, I would showing more, sorry, for example, I would show less but wear more, if that makes sense. So the whole concept of
Mm-hmm.
layering, texture playing, etc., all those techniques that have been used in the modest like in the modest fashion for years. It's not something new. It's something that Muslim women has have been doing because under our abayas we always wear something else. Under our clothes we always
Mm-hmm.
wear something else. We always play with texture, especially with the different types of scarves. So I think it definitely fuels my creativity in a very, very big way because then like instead of telling myself, oh, maybe I should like show off my shoulder so like it's like this, I'd be like, okay, I want to show off my shoulder, but let's for example wear something else underneath. That way I'm able to show my shoulder
Mm-hmm.
but like not show skin. And that
Yeah.
adds a type of structure too because there is layering as a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
um so I think those limitations do fuel my creativity very, very deeply. I don't see it as a restraint or as a constraint at all. um, I forgot what was the other question.
No, it's okay. I was just saying, how has working within structure like expanded your artistry, and if you experience modesty as a constraint in your design practice?
Mm. Um, Working with structure really helped me understand. I don't know if it really relates to the question, but it really made me understand design and craftsmanship better. Because
Interesting.
working with
Elaborate.
textile, working with textiles and seeing how, depending on the fibers you use, they will flow differently. Depending on the fibers you use, they will sit differently. They would be structured differently. They would have a different shape depending on how you use it, how you pin them, how you shape
Mm-hmm.
them. I think that made me understand craftsmanship more in the sense where we don't always sit down and think deeply about where our textiles and fibers come from and how they
Mm-hmm.
are made and how they're manipulated to be able to make the clothes that we wear today. It's a very,
Yeah.
very long process. It's a deep process. It's a process rooted in tradition and in history. Um, I think it really, really opened my mind more. I was like, it's crazy that someone was able to cultivate this
Mm-hmm.
and make it from scratch and be able to make strands out of it and be able to make a whole fabric out of those strands and then make a whole piece of
Right.
fabric out of it. Like it's mind
Yeah.
blowing. It's really mind blowing. I think it's it has played a huge part into my creativity because then it made me want to understand other materials better, not only
Yeah.
textiles but like rope. I work with rope a lot. Paper sometimes. I've been very interested with paper ever since like my sister introduced me to her friend. His name is Raul and his girlfriend is named Flora. They live in Toronto and they have this they're teachers and they're artists and they work with paper a lot and the things they
Mm-hmm.
do are absolutely mind blowing. I have never seen things like this before. And they make it from scratch and it's like they incorporate paper and painting, like paper making and
Mm-hmm.
painting, making it like it's absolutely crazy. I'm really like going somewhere else with this response, but
No, no, I get it.
mention this, it's yeah, when my sister introduced me to them and like she like presented me to them and they showed us what they were doing, etc. I was like, wow, like this is really it's amazing what people can do with materials, what people can do with natural materials and natural like vegetal things. It's
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it really opens my mind more and it made me want to learn more, not only about my practice, so like within textiles, within fibers, but also other materials. And yeah, in that way, it really made me understand craftsmanship more and respect it even more and respect the cost of it more as well
Yeah.
because we tend to say that things are expensive, but it's not necessarily expensive. It's just the production of it takes time. It's long. The materials that are used sometimes, if you source them somewhere else and you don't make them yourself, are expensive. Like they're costly stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I really made me like understand it better and be more grounded within it as well. So
Yeah. Yeah, you were saying that you don't think that response answers the question. I think it answers it beautifully because it shows intention, and like you said, it makes you appreciate the craftsmanship and that the work that gets put into these kinds of things. We tend to like go into fabric stores, for instance, and see all this fabric and think like, oh, I don't understand why it's like 7.99 a yard. Some of these are handmade. Someone has sat for 30 hours trying to put together 1 yard of fabric, and you're trying to buy 6 yards for $30, babe. It's not gonna work like that. Like, you
exactly.
know, and it
Uh,
makes you more intentional too about like the clothing that you're wearing because like or that you're using to make something out of because you realize that it's not just I don't know. It's like it's not just something that someone just made out of nowhere. Like this person who made this comes from somewhere, does something for a living. Like it really makes you put it into perspective and respect the work a lot more. And then that even shows in your work. Like you are very under the impression and under the mindset that like you understand that this is important to someone and it came from someone and this is the amount of time they put into it. So I'm gonna make sure I put in just as much effort to make sure it comes out beautifully to show that what they made is like amazing and that they should be represented for it rather than just like what I made out of it. So I completely understand. Like I feel like that's something I've been learning myself. I'll like try to look for fabric and things like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is all expensive, but it's supposed to be expensive. Like it's
yes.
not that easy, you know? And yeah, I even like started getting into sewing because sometimes these tailors charge a lot of money, but I understand why. Like my sewing needle broke twice yesterday. Like I get it. It's hard. Like but it does make you appreciate a lot more and take your time and be more intentional with it and think about a very a multitude of things basically when you're putting together a creative work. And I think that's what makes it creative, and I think that also adds to your spontaneity. I think that's the word. And then overall just creates like a very well-rounded, beautiful piece. So I think that's great that you have a mindset like that about it.
Thank you. Thank you. I think what really
Yeah.
was being able to speak with people that actually work within those fields. It's mind blowing. Like when I was in Dakar, I went to a digital dyeing workshop with a
Mm-hmm.
woman called Nunu. Nunu is a designer and she also works with digital dyes and she has an atelier in the La Saumon. And she
Mhm.
does these workshops where she introduces people to vegetal dyeing and she shows people how it's made from from scratch, and she shows the plants and the vegetables that are used, how they are conserved. And mind you, those things are kept in huge cubes for years. Like they
Mhm.
are used and reused and reused and reused. And I love the sustainable part of it, because there's absolutely no waste. When you're done dyeing, the water that you dyed with, you put it back in the cube and then you reuse it like 3 years later. It's absolutely very thoughtful, because when we think of it, we tend to forget that African fashion is sustainable because it is based on craftsmanship and natural
Mhm.
material. And it's it's practices and methods that are made to respect the environment, to respect the body, to respect our spirituality as well, because there's a certain connection that as Africans we have with nature. And it's just very, very fascinating to see how everything is made, from the vegetables that are used to the way it's going to be weaved
Mhm.
into different textiles. It's really beautiful. It's very inspiring. Like, I would encourage anybody to at least witness it once in their life.
Yeah, definitely. Like was telling myself next time I revisit Senegal, inshallah, like I really want to visit. A lot of the times we see these people who are in these artistic industries, whether that they're tailors or they make like artwork and things like that, but they're always being presented in the way for like tourists, if that makes sense. Like they're located, but if you go in like certain areas where they really do it, you'll see like the full production of it, and it makes you appreciate a lot more. Because there's sometimes like if you go to Gore, for instance, they'll maybe have some people showing you how they do like certain types of artwork and things like that. And if you only see it from that perspective and only that one piece of artwork, it kind of limits your brain on like what it really looks like. Like I really want to go to these spaces and see like how they make things from scratch and all the work that goes into it, the intention, the thought, and the care. Because a lot of these things end up getting exported anyways, and they come here and they get sold for so much more. And I think once you really see like how it's being made over there, you and a lot of people are realizing it, they're going to advocate for a push for representation more in that sense, or getting reimbursed in a better way, because it's really beautiful. It just deconstructs that narrative that Africa is primitive once again, and that these people have real skill and they're very talented and they're capable of more than we know.
Yes,
I have
absolutely.
two more questions for you.
Mhm.
First question, this one was unplanned, but I'm thinking about it now. Your journey
Mhm.
with social media, talk to me about it. Like, what made you want to start putting up your work on there? What kind of outlet is it for you? And, like, what is your goal with it the next couple of years? Because that's how I discovered you, right? Is your intention to, like, have girls like me, for instance, who want to dress modestly and, like, be exposed to African fabrics and textiles, to see that it exists and that it can be dressed, use it can be dressed in like a modest way, or what was your intention with it, and how has it like helped you, and what opportunities has it presented for you, and where do you plan to go with it in the next couple of years?
Social media, I have my relationship with social media has really fluctuated throughout the years, in a sense
Hmm.
where I was always on Instagram posting, etc. Even before I got into fashion, I was
Yeah,
already like a pretty extravagant person even before I got into fashion. So I
as
think
you should. Yeah.
um, I was posting on social media already. I think the point where it shifted for me was the point, like the moment where I started looking for validation instead of just representing
Mm.
myself. That was a few
Oh
years
girl, been
ago.
there, done that. Been there, done that.
I'd say maybe more around COVID, actually. I was
Yeah.
really, really looking for validation when I was posting on social media. I really wanted to be like on this whole influencer like trend and etc. So I was very, very present. But then I kind of had a moment where I was like, I'm tired of this and it's
Mm.
being too much. And I
Yeah.
realized it and I was like, I'm gonna calm down. So that's when I took a break. I took a break for a very, very long time. And then when I came back, it was also before I started wearing the hijab. I was just posting for fun, posting things that I liked, posting myself, just as I'm doing now. And I guess the moment where I started showing more of my personal style with the hijab is when people started relating more to my work, more specifically with the draping videos.
Mhm.
I'd say that was the moment where people started like seeing it more and being like, oh, this is different, et cetera, et cetera. And like that's when I started like building a bigger audience. I would say that at the beginning I felt very pressured by the rhythm of social media. I felt like it really had to always be fast paced. I always had to produce something. I always had to post something, and that was very
Mm.
overwhelming. And
Yeah.
I think that's that moment also where I started learning to have a balance between the two, having a balance between doing what I like and
Mhm.
showing it to people, but also not doing what I like for people, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it's like
Completely.
I do something, I like it, I want to show it. I do. If I don't, I keep it for myself. But I'm not posting for people anymore. I feel like a few years ago I
Mhm.
was really posting for people. And now I feel a bit more comfortable with social media. It's like I'm
Yeah.
not super pressured. I don't feel stressed about like posting or not. I don't feel like trapped into one thing, because sometimes when people relate to things on your page, you'd feel like that's always what you have to show, because then people are not necessarily going to like what you're going to post. But it's like it's your page, it's
Yeah.
my page, it's literally me. So
Mhm.
I'm going to post different things and being more comfortable
Mhm.
showing things and showing new things too, and being more outspoken about certain things. So my relationship with social media really fluctuated. And yeah, I would say that was my experience with it.
Yeah.
And it really
No, I
did
find that.
new
Yeah.
opportunities like magazines or
Mhm.
podcasts today. Uh,
Yeah.
so I'm very, very grateful for that. I would say though that sometimes the people that it would attract were not the most intentional people.
Interesting.
So I would have some experiences with people that, for example, would like to feature me in magazines, but like would not be intentional at all. And I discovered it after, and like we wouldn't have the same values. It would really be like out of profit. And it was very,
Mhm.
very frustrating to see that happening, especially from people within your community. So I would say though that it is risky sometimes in terms of
Yeah.
opportunities, because you never really know who you're gonna end up with working.
Mhm.
So I'm very, very careful when it comes to that. But I'm also very, very grateful for all the opportunities and all the visibility that it has given me. For the next few years, I would say um I never really had a goal when posting on social media about what I do. I would say one of the messages that I would like to transmit is that modesty doesn't mean silence. You can
Mhm.
express yourself while staying modest. You can be yourself while being modest. Modesty is a principle, it's not an image, it's not a specific way of being, it's not a specific personality. You can be outspoken, you can be loud, you can be more calm, you can be more extravagant, you can be introverted, you can be extroverted, you can be anything you want. But then modesty, it's a principle, it's an identity. So you shape it in the
Mhm.
way that feels better for you. So I think that's also something that I would like to transmit as a message for people to have an idea and like a vision of modesty that is less like constraining and restraining and oppressive, I would say, because people tend
Mhm.
to um like link modesty and hijab with oppression. So I really want people to like be more educated about it and understand that it's not about that, and it's really more about personal choices and how you are as a
Mhm.
person.
Yeah, you actually answered what my last question was going to be, and that was what is like a lie about modest fashion or African creativity, like that you hope this generation stops believing. But I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I understand with social media sometimes it feels like you have to like it's so easy to get stuck in that trap of like wanting to seek validation from other people and you know getting comments on your photos. Like there was a time I think like I could look like really, really pretty. And until someone told me that, I wouldn't believe it for myself online. And
Mhm.
it's so easy to get stuck in that cycle. I'm so glad you got out of it and not only like it didn't push you away from it, and you used it as an outlet to do such powerful work. And I really commend you for it, because just know you are inspiring many people. You are starting many conversations even, and you like there's probably things going on in people's brains because of your work, when it comes to the way they dress modestly or interpret African fashion or whatever the case may be. um so I really commend you for not only recognizing that you were at a place where that wasn't healthy, but instead of like completely walking away from it, like you continued to, use it, but just in a way that works for you. And once again, that just speaks to the authenticity. I have such a hard time saying that word, of your work, and the spontaneity as well in terms of like what it is that you do. I think it just ties in beautifully, and it just is a representation of why you are where you are today, and have had so many of the amazing opportunities that you have had. And I cannot thank you enough for what you're doing. I think it's beautiful, and it's going to reap so many benefits, and it's going to reach the right people. I'm so sorry you had that one unfortunate incident as well. It happens, but I think it's part of the process as well. It just lets you create boundaries, and when opportunities come in the future, you kind of could just be like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. It happens to the best of us, and social media is a thing that we're all like newly navigating. Every day it's something different in how people are going to do things, and use people who are on social media frequently for their brands, or their work, or whatever it is that they're doing. So, but yeah, I think that's really great, and I hope you continue to post. I always love seeing your face, and I love seeing your work. It's a constant reminder, for me, that once again, African fashion can be modest. It's not too loud, right? It's not maximalist. It is just African fashion, and there's nothing wrong with tapping into it every now and then, or just constantly if you want to as well. And to be spontaneous really with like what you have around you, and let that breathe into how you carry yourself and what you wear and all of those things.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your kind words. It's like very reassuring in a sense and inspiring as well because you never really know how people perceive you and the impacts
Yeah,
that what you has on people until people express it. So I'm very, very happy that like you relate to my work and that you appreciate it. And
yeah,
thanks so much for your kind words and for having me because I think platforms like this are very, very important to spread education and awareness about a lot of things. So I'm very, very grateful for that. Thank you so much.
yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you for taking the time out of your day and probably busy schedule, especially while you're fasting, girl. I don't know how you're doing it. My brain is like throbbing over here. But
Was lucky because
I
like
really,
Canada, I don't know at what time you break your fast, but we usually break our fast around like 5:30, 5:40. So it was
same
pretty
here. Yeah.
until now, since now the time changed, it's gonna be later. But I think we're more fortunate than back home where they break at like 7:38. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they got that, honestly. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
That is